Welcome to The Decision from Nashville EO, where you will hear the rest of the story after tough decisions were made by entrepreneurs who faced adversity and lived to tell about it.
Hi, Robert Hartline here with The Decision, Nashville EO's podcast specifically for those entrepreneurs that are struggling with a decision that come to Forum with a little bit of asking for help. If you've not heard of Entrepreneur Organization, we are the largest chapter in the United States with about 345 members that get together monthly to have about a 3.5-hour conversation to help other members with a decision. Today, we have Eric Jackson, my co-host. How are you, Eric?
I'm well. Thanks for asking.
And I have a special guest, Tinnin. How are you?
I'm so good.
So good.
So good.
So good. So lots of reasons to have you on the podcast today. But first, why don't you tell us a little bit about your business?
So I am the founder and head coach at Skillway, and we are a sales coaching organization. We work with sales professionals and business owners and sales teams all over the country to help them crush their sales goals and love what they do.
And love what they do. So tell me, now you do this with your hubby.
I do.
That's got to be wild.
It is. It is not for everyone. It is for us.
That is great. I have an ex-wife that I worked with too. So
Yes. I have an ex-husband that I don't work with, but I never ran a business with him.
Wow. So tell us about the start of Skillway.
So the start of Skillway happened when I worked for a previous sales consulting firm. So as a sales coach, we talk to sales professionals and business owners. We help them tackle big issues that they're facing in their business to grow revenue. And I was at another consulting firm, and my husband's background, Shane, is a software engineer. He was a software consultant. And when I was working with these organizations as a 1099 team member, he and I started comparing notes and realizing how parallel our conversations were in his consulting world with software and in my consulting world with sales. So when I left the previous consulting firm, Shane and I were having a conversation, and I said, so you have always helped me in my business. And if we go forward and start Skillway, you don't get to pretend that you don't work for the company anymore. Your name's going on the website. Your face is going on the website. We are doing this as business partners. We are all in. And he said, do I have to wear a suit? And I said, no, I don't care what you wear. And he's like, great. I'm going to wear a baseball cap and a black t-shirt from this day forward.
And that's never changed. Best I can tell.
No.
That's the brand, right?
That's the brand. That's the brand of Shane.
Yeah.
Black t-shirt, black hat.
Studio musician.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
And so there was a decision there just going off on your own.
There was, when I joined the previous consulting firm, and that was probably the biggest decision I had to face, was working with them and realizing that my values no longer aligned with theirs. And I like to say that I was outgrowing them as much as they were outgrowing me. And I didn't have a forum then. And I struggled significantly on making that decision. It's time for me to go. It's time for me to leave. And I was on an incentive trip. I was in St. Martin. I was walking down the beach. It was my last morning on the beach. And I was crying. I was walking down the beach and I was crying. And I was having a CTJ with myself, a come to Jesus. And you can cry on the ocean and no one can hear you. It's kind of nice. And I was saying, I'm making more money than I've ever made. I love my clients and I don't belong here anymore. And I knew that that was the last incentive trip I was going to be on with the company, but I didn't know how to decide how to leave. And I came back to the hotel room and my eyes are kind of red and puffy. And Shane looked at me and he's like, what's going on? Well, I'm quitting.
Wow. Wait a minute. This is the incentive trip that they give you because they like
Because
you
I
and want to
closed
keep
a
you.
whole bunch of business.
You're a high performer and I'm done.
Yes, I'm a high
So
performer.
is this a risk that we take doing incentive trips, that someone's going to have this epiphany on the beach during the very exercise of celebratory of your work at the company? We're going to risk losing you? Is that how this works?
No, that's not how it works. You run a really great organization. You do really great things. Your team's not going to leave you.
Yeah.
People don't leave people, or people don't leave companies. People leave people.
Yeah. So the trip didn't make any difference to you. It didn't
No,
make you any.
That was where I made the decision.
Wow.
I knew I was leaving long before that, but that's
Yeah.
where I knew.
But it was a value. Was it a values disconnect that was the real reason, right?
Yeah. The company, at Skillway, we only work with sales professionals that are in the relationship-based sales space. And I really love the consultative sale. I love the process of building deep relationships and working with people for a really, really long time. And when you are growing your entire business based on how well you're taking care of them, you never lose them.
Mm.
And because I was just a consultant, I didn't have that control. And there were a couple of things that took place, and I had built my entire career on taking really great care of my clients, and I wasn't in control of that. And that's where we outgrew each other, is because I only worked with a very specific type of sales professional or business owner, and they had a just get out there and close the crap out of them mentality. And it wasn't in alignment with what I did.
That's beautiful. Now, how did you talk your husband into this whole big change? Well, it sounds like you made the decision. Was he along for the ride?
He was definitely along for the ride. Shane and I we met at work. So 25-ish years ago, we met at work.
That does work.
It does. And we had worked together at a couple of different companies. I remember the first company that we worked for, and then I left and went to another company, and I was like, hey, we need you over here, and I recruited him over. So Shane and I have always been the type of couple where every single night when we're talking about our day, we are meeting by meeting by meeting, debriefing our entire day. And we've been that way our entire life. So there's never been a time where Shane and I didn't work together, even if we weren't at the same company.
Mm.
And this move to start Skillway was something that we both knew we had to do. And it was one of the easiest decisions to start Skillway. But getting to that decision of leaving and then moving on was the toughest part.
And I'm curious about this because I think there's a lot of EO members that have a spouse that they work with, and they're in the top of the organization. How do you separate the duties in terms of who does what? What does that look like in your company?
Well, Shane has a great way of describing that, where he says, I run a sales coaching organization and I do everything but the sales and everything but the coaching. And so he does what I don't like doing, and I do everything that he doesn't like doing. We have a team. So now we have a team of people who do a lot of things with us. But
you guys decided that early on?
Yeah, it was very clear very early on that Shane was going to be running the marketing and the accounting and the IT side of it. And I was going to be running the delivery and the sales piece of our business.
Beautiful. Yeah. And so how do you separate? When does the work of Skillway stop?
7 p.m. So that's where Shane and I have made the decision, because I remember one night we were lying in bed having a conversation about Skillway. And it turned into one conversation, which led to another. And then Shane got up and went back to his office because he was like, well, I got to go work on this. And I was like, well, I think I just messed up. And so we made the rule that Skillway never comes to our bedroom, but we also turn Skillway off at night. So around 7 o'clock, we stop talking work so that we can start completely decompressing. And then we never talk about Skillway in our bedroom. And so we have been walking down the hallway before, and we stop at our door and finish a conversation. And we're like, and now we can go.
That's good. I mean, everybody needs boundaries, and you guys figured out that's where the boundary was.
Right. So we do. We have been able to do that. But as we have grown our team and have leaders in our team now, we now know that it's even more critical for us to shut it off because we don't want to be having conversations and making decisions without the other decision makers in our company as part of it.
Can I ask a question? So
Yeah.
what happens when, my kids, like if they want something, they'll go to mom first, right?
Yeah, it's the
Does
easy
that-
one.
Yes, yeah. She's a pushover,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
So what happens in your world with your team? Is there someone that's apt to say yes? Or how do you separate those two?
Well, I say yes to everything because everything is a brilliant idea.
Mm.
Amazing. And then I'm like, you got to go talk to the guy who runs the numbers.
Sounds like we've got a visionary
Yes,
sitting here between us.
you have the visionary of the company right here. As Shane has said, Duke comes up with 100 cockamamie ideas, and one of them is brilliant.
So he's more or less the integrator in your organization.
He's the complete integrator. So that is completely how we just happen to marry.
That is really phenomenal when you think about having that ability to because we spend all of our time working, right? And to actually get to spend time with a partner, that sounds exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only going to work for a very few amount of people, right? That it would actually line up.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of, so something that I think the audience doesn't know is, you're not an EO member, but your husband is.
Yes.
And you're in a different group.
I am.
What's the other group?
So when we started Skillway, I wanted to join Catalyst immediately, but because of my travel schedule and because of the different things that I was doing, it didn't work out where I could join Catalyst. So I asked Shane, I said, will you do Catalyst? And he looked at it and he's like, I don't think I want to do that. And then the next year I pushed him again and said, will you do Catalyst this year? And he said, well, I'll talk to Michael about it. So he had a meeting with Michael Bertram and that worked out well. So he joined Catalyst and I joined a group called BrainTrust. BrainTrust is another EO member who started BrainTrust. And it is the same type of forum experience for women business owners. So of all of the women business owners that exist, only 2% of them get to $1 million in revenue. And only 10% of them have employees. So when BrainTrust was started, it was to help more women business owners cross that $1 million mark. So then we would then have access to organizations like EO. So when Shane and I diversified, I joined BrainTrust, Shane started in Catalyst, and then Shane is now an EO member and in a forum. And I'm in BrainTrust, which is Key Club, and Key Club is for the $1 million business owners as well.
Would you say the format of a either deep dive or presentation is very similar?
It's the same format.
Same format.
Yeah, we follow all the same format.
And so when you are about to go to your forum with, let's say, a challenge, or do you do your own coaching with Shane beforehand to talk? Do you share with what you're going to talk about, or do you kind of keep them completely separate?
We surprisingly keep them separate. But it was very funny because we had a meeting, our leadership meeting, the most recent leadership meeting we had. I was like, well, this is what I brought to my forum for my deep dive. And he's like, that's what I talked to my forum about in our deep dive. So we were able to collaborate on our notes of how we were going to come through this decision. But most oftentimes I'll be like, what's your deep dive this week? And he's like, and we'll talk about it. And sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But no, I try not to have the influence of him because I really want to go into it and get the feedback and experience share from my forum without having the Shane in the back of my mind going, well, this is what Shane already thinks.
Yeah. And you have an existing bias to his perspective too, right? Yeah. And what kind of decisions have you had in the business that you were able to bring the forum that you were struggling with at a time in your business? As business owners, we face such a significant amount of challenges. And one of the things that I look back on now and really, I just look at the decision of us
me leaving the former consulting firm and starting Skillway as how many of those decisions would have been so much easier with a forum. But one of the decisions that we came to last year was, so we have a team of coaches and all of our coaches coach our coaching clients. And so the relationship is between the coach and our coaching client. And we had a coach that wasn't going to make it at our company. And so he had coaching clients, and we ran into the decision of how do we retain our coaching clients without losing all of them, because so much of the relationship was between
Wow.
that.
That's
and so
challenging.
it was a key player. How do you handle losing a key player in your company and not lose the book of business that they're managing?
That's a costly decision either way. Someone's getting hurt, right?
Someone's
Right.
getting hurt. Relationships are going to suffer. Yeah, there's a lot.
What was your key worry?
Within Skillway, what was my key worry? That our clients were going to feel abandoned.
Mm.
We pour into our clients so much in their business. I mean, we're trying to help them crush their sales goals. We're trying to help them love what they do. So the conversations that we have feel like we're in a forum discussion so much of the time, because they're bringing their key challenges to us. We are asking them really deep questions. We're trying to identify how we can help them. And then through experience sharing, or sometimes through the tip or tool or technique through our content that we have, we're helping them identify what they're facing. And when you lose a key player, when you lose your coach, it feels like they're being abandoned. And I think that was the biggest challenge that we were facing, was we didn't want them to feel like they trusted Skillway and now
this is
they're going to lose the
this is
relationship.
a tough one, but was it a situation where this person wasn't exactly a fit for the business going forward, right? And you have to make a call or decision, right? They were just not aligned, and you had to say goodbye, right? But you wanted to figure out how to do that. How did you do your presentation? Did you get coached before you did the presentation and then get feedback? Tell me about that experience.
So with that experience directly, I did get coached on it, because I wanted to bring it to the forum as how do you recover from losing a key player in your company, and what changes do I need to make on the front end next time, so that when another coach leaves or when another key player in your company leaves, we have a better handle on what the situation's going to be. I wanted direct experience shares on how did you handle it when a key player in your company left, and what are some things that you've put in place to make sure that the client, your business, your book of business, whatever, is being handled the way that is going to make them feel like they're being guided and not abandoned.
So if you go back to that time, you're asking for help of your forum. What did you wish you could change about that experience when you shared that? If you could go back in time and do it differently, or what feedback could you give back to the forum? I wish they had done X, Y, and Z. Would have been more helpful. This is where we're kind of diving in to really the nuance of being a good forum mate, but also a good presenter of the material. Like, critique yourself and then critique the forum.
I'm going to critique myself first and say, I wish that I had the foresight to have this discussion before it was needed, before it was critical to have the discussion. I had been coaching for many years before that. Other coaches had left. I just had never had that happen directly in my business with our clients directly. So I'll critique myself and say, gosh dang, why didn't you think that this was not going to happen at Skillway? And so that's where I would critique that. The experience shares that I got that day were so raw on where I wouldn't have thought it would have applied to our business at Skillway. But it did. And it applied so thoroughly. And then we were able to make changes. I'm so grateful we haven't had to, we haven't had another key player leave in our company. So we haven't had to put any of it into play, but we were able to make some of those changes. If I were to say, I don't think I would have a critique on my forum being better forum mates in that situation, because what you're looking for is putting yourself in the situation of how did you handle it when a key player left? And this is what I did. I walked away with a page of notes and couldn't wait to get home and start implementing and talking about them.
So how soon were you ready to make a decision after that?
The decision happened at the same time. But one of the things that one of the experience shares that made so much sense that I never would have walked away and said this made sense. But one of the businesses is a mechanic, basically an auto repair shop, and it was when one of the key mechanics retired, and it was like, okay, well, if so and so is not going to work on my vehicle anymore, there's no reason for me to bring my vehicle to you. And it was like, oh no, it's a team environment. It's the whole entire team experience. And that was the unbelievable aha I had, was it is not just this individual person. It's the whole entire experience. And that is what matters significantly. And then the other experience share was in a type of school environment of when they will allow teachers or tutors to resign, and you have to give X amount of days notice, and you have to give some of these other things that allow you to prepare the client for the transition. And again, you don't think that your forum is going to bring you an experience that has nothing to do with your business, yet you go, oh my gosh, that's brilliant.
You know what came up for me in that talk was that you almost you were reminded that you have a process here. It's not all about the coach. You have a process that the team is following to provide the service to your client that's paying you. And so it's like recognition that it's Skillway providing the service, right? You have a coach, and you have several coaches that provide the service, right? So it's not all about the relationship. That was a really good recognition, yeah. And so how did it pan out?
It panned out. We did lose some of our clients did leave, and we had and it wasn't where he had a full roster of clients. He didn't have very many. We recognized earlier that it wasn't going to last. And the clients that have stayed are still with us. It's been
great.
Well over a year, and those clients are still with us because we were able to make that transition and make a couple of adjustments and changes where it does work. And another thing that we realized through that is that when a coaching client is leaving they think that they're done with their coaching program. We've now had coaching clients that have transitioned to another coach in our company to start over with a new experience.
Because they learned something new.
So it's not even that the key person left as much as it is like, I'm ready for a new experience. And so we were able to transition that into other coaching clients who said, hey, I want to try another coach at Skillway.
Yeah, you've heard that same advice 7 or more times. You're like, finally sinks in, and then you're like, I'm ready to learn something new.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Of course, I can't imagine leaving Jen. I'm a client of Skillway.
For more than 2 years.
Exactly. But it's true in so many different coaching experiences. I take drum lessons still. And the guy that I take drum lessons for had to step away for a couple of months. A new guy stepped in to take his place, and I got a different perspective. And I think it's healthy at times to do that. And I view my coaching experience with Jen to be almost like therapy.
As my therapist says, I'm a therapist without the credentialing.
Yeah. You really, really are like. Because, the in my experience, the sales is really the front line of what we do as an organization. And just about every organization, every business, sales is the first touch that somebody has in many cases. And there's a lot of pressure there. There's a lot of loneliness. You're dealing with lots of different types of people and situations. And so there are times where you get overwhelmed. You've never dealt with something before. And it for me, it's made a huge difference. So I'm glad you guys are in my life.
Sales is a lonely world.
It really is.
So it's being a business owner.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's another factor is, it's one of the most important functions that you have. If you're looking at it from an EOS perspective, you've got finance and operations, and marketing and sales is always right there. If that fails, you're in trouble.
Now, during that process, when you have some, I imagine a lot of anxiety because you're like, oh gosh, there's revenue, right? Revenue goes really quickly, and I know how hard it is to find a client, right? And did the fear match the reality?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, the fear didn't match the reality at all. The reality of it is when you're delivering a really great service, right? And this goes back to the whole entire reason why when we started Skillway and we said we're only going to work with relationship-based sales businesses and business owners, is because we're doing that exact same thing with every single relationship that we're working with. 80% of our clients are companies that we're working with, and then they put their teams in coaching. Only 20% of our business is a one-on-one person who comes to us and says, I want coaching. And so when you have the relationship with the company and you're taking really great care of them, they don't want to leave.
So let me ask, I'm going to totally change the subject here because I want to go back to the sales thing because I'm just super curious of this because this is someone that is working with lots of salespeople, lots of different personalities. Can you turn a loser into a winner?
Oh my gosh. Okay. The answer is yes. And there are a couple of different things that typically play into why they could be, I'm going to use your term, a loser. Gosh dang, that hurts my soul to say that. But you have to find the reason. And so oftentimes we are managing our salespeople the way that we like to be managed. And we are managing our salespeople the way that we had been managed. So it's almost as if we're doing it by default. And some people don't want to be managed that way. And some people aren't motivated the same way you're motivated. If you're motivated by making a ridiculous amount of money, not everybody is motivated by making a ridiculous amount of money or motivated by going on an incentive trip or motivated by that. But if they are motivated by having a more flexible schedule where they could be available for pickups and drop-offs and home every night with their family, and they're still making a wildly great income, then what you have to do is you have to find where their motivating factors are. That could be one of them. And then there's always the opportunity of, are they even selling the right service or product that they're passionate about? Like when you're on, I use this example all the time. I worked for Wells Fargo for a number of years. And I used to say I rode the giddy up for I am one of the best employees you'll ever have. And I know that as an entrepreneur, they say, I'll never be another employee. I loved, and I love being an employee of Skillway. I love being an employee because when you have a team of people where you're all going towards the same mission, you can be a cheerleader. And so sometimes people are also just not on the giddy up. They're not selling the right product or service. They're not at the right company. But when you can find the passion that matches the motivation and giving them the tools to sell their services, you can definitely turn a loser into a winner.
So, and I shouldn't have used the word loser,
That's okay.
but let's call them unmotivated for a moment.
Underperformers.
Underperformers. Yes.
Underperformers.
So let's say you have somebody that was a winner at one time, and suddenly they just don't have that gist. You get on the phone with them and ask them how they're going, and it's the product is bad. It doesn't work here. And we have that, right? You have someone that doesn't believe in the product,
right?
But you need them to perform. How do you get that shift?
So again, there's a difference between micromanaging and accountability. And most managers think that in order for me to hold my team accountable, I'm micromanaging them. There's such a significant difference between the two. But when you set up your scorecard with the metrics that you need to follow and understanding where it is, there are motivators and there are skills. And then there's a lot of other things that play into that. And when you can identify what their detractor is or what is challenging them, is it time management because they stink at managing their time? Is it their sales skills? Because not every salesperson is a master of every single thing within the sales cycle. And so if they are setting a ton of appointments, but not doing a lot of proposals, it might be that they're selling on price in the appointment setting, right? And so then you have to get them to set better appointments. But if they're giving a ton of proposals and not closing, are they not asking for the business or are they not overcoming objections? So then you evaluate the sales process and look at it in that area. So it really is finding what the salesperson is struggling with in order to then identify where you have to then fix the issue.
And how much of it is watching language and then just realigning some self-limiting talk that they have? With this language, you can tell that it's standing in their way.
Right. A ton.
Yeah.
A ton. Sales isn't just a numbers game. It's a keeping your head in the game. And so you don't realize that the person that you talk to the most is yourself. And if you're arguing with yourself of like, how often do I talk to myself? All the time. You talk to yourself all the time. And so whether you think you can and you think you can't, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
We say that every day, all day long. And that is the piece that when you're talking to yourself on whether or not you think you can accomplish something, we talk about language a lot at Skillway. When we hear one of our clients say, if I could just close that big deal, and we're like, when you close that big deal, like just changing the language of if versus when is such a significant difference, because if you're always just throwing it out there and hoping that the universe delivers this amazing sales pipeline to your platter, it's not always going to work that way. But you can speak things into existence. I have so many stories of different things that have been manifested, whatever you want to call it, where you literally spoke something into existence.
All the time. But how do we get other people to believe this?
By giving them the tools that you use to start working through that. People don't realize that what you say to yourself does matter. And that's where that language starts changing, is when you start using language that is going to help them achieve what they want to achieve. It starts with, the 6 inches between your ears. And then that's where, when you start to believe, we believe in affirmations. I have affirmations in my shower. It says today's going to be a great day. It's laminated, hanging in my shower. I have them on my mirror. I have them on my phone. They're in, every room of our house. And our coaches do the same thing. It makes me unbelievably happy when I happen to be at one of our coaches' houses and I go into the bathroom and there's an affirmation note sticking on the mirror. Or our clients will send us pictures of where their affirmations are hanging in their house, because what you say to yourself matters and you can change your belief.
Nobody has said worse things to me than I've said to myself. And so one of the habits that I've gotten in because of my coaching experience is journaling in the morning. I've had it told to me 1,000 times, but I've gotten into that habit now. And one of the questions is, what would make today a great day? And inevitably, it turns to sales, right? It's what I'm doing most of the day. And so many people forget that if you can't go out and start a conversation with somebody if you think you're going to fail and if you're expecting the worst. It's entrepreneurs suffer from this as well, not just salespeople. It's any part of the entrepreneurial journey. You've got to have that headspace right.
You have to have that headspace right. And you have to be kinder to yourself and give yourself more grace than you give to anyone else. Self-care is, it's why they say put your mask on first. You have to put your own mask on first before you can help somebody else. And if you're not taking care of yourself, how are you going to take care of your team? How are you going to take care of your pipeline? How are you going to take care of your clients? So you have to put your mask on first. And what's going to make today great? These 3 things. But then at the same time, in that same evaluation, after you have a sales presentation, what could you have done to make it better? Did you do all of the things that you needed to? Did you ask them the right questions? Did you evaluate the situation? And gosh dang, did you set, next steps for your next meeting? Where I think that's where so many of us fall is that we have, as I like to say, commission ears. We have a meeting, we're like, woohoo, just to close that one. But what you really have to do is look at it and say, did you actually deliver what you promised, or did you actually deliver what they need? Because there's so many different that fall into it.
So when do you give up on someone? When is the time?
Did he just say, when do I give up?
Yeah, I did say it.
Quitting, in my opinion, is vastly underrated. There are times to quit. So you can either quit yourself or quit on other people and make that sometimes you have to make that decision, right?
Yeah.
When does that happen?
Well, there are significant times that you give up or that you give up on somebody. At Skillway, we tell clients no, that they're not a fit for our coaching program far more than they think. And we say that to people on a regular basis. I just don't think we're the right fit for you. And I think that is part of that abundance mentality that we also teach, that how well you're taking care of yourself is that, you can tell somebody no in any time. But what you have to be ready for is that you're not hoarding that one deal or that one client or that one proposal, and that you have so many that you're working on that it's just who's next.
Dude, this was very helpful. A lot of the conversations that happen in EO is, how do I grow my business? And sales is a topic of conversation
all the time.
I hope everyone here has had a good time on this episode with Do It from Skillway. Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
If you have not explored entrepreneur organization, we are here in Nashville. You can reach out to us. You can go visit us at NashvilleEO.com. What's the web address?
EONashville.com. And if you want to get to the podcast, EONashville.com/podcasts. So we're the only one right now, but there are multiple episodes. I guess that's what that's supposed to mean.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate the help there. And thanks for joining us. And thank you, Nashville.
Thanks for listening to the Decision Podcast by Nashville EO. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.